This is my big sun hat. It's a little bit geeky, but it really, this is, I mean, the best SPF is shade, you guys. So it's a little overly glam. It's a little bit geeky, but whatever. So, whoop, sorry about that. So in social media this week, or well, this week for me, I'm not sure when I'd be posting this, but the dear Josh Rosebrook posted about an article that he wrote about the widespread misinformation about essential oils, which is, sorry about that, which is a topic that I have covered a couple of times, and I'm really glad that he did, because, you know, Josh Rosebrook is a much bigger brand than Stark, and so it's really good when the quote-unquote bigger guys are doing a little bit of whistleblowing, because I often feel like I do a lot of it, but my platform and my reach is comparatively minuscule next to a lot of my friends and colleagues in green beauty. So I was really happy that he was talking about this, and in fact he mentioned a quote that a customer had emailed to him by that brand that I was talking about in my video about what did I call it, demonizing essential oils. The same quote that was emailed to him was actually emailed to me by a customer. Maybe the same person, I don't know. Maybe she just decided to email a few brand founders to see what our opinion was about it. And, you know, I'm in the forest. I can't give you verbatim. Oh God, I need to be wearing concealer. I can't tell you verbatim what it said, but essentially it was saying that essential oils are dangerous and, you know, they are highly volatile compounds. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just, it sounds bad, right? They lead to inflammation and blah blah blah, and that what essential oils, one of their functions, like in the plant itself, is to ward off insects, which is true in a sense, but then she goes on to say, like, why would you want to put insecticide on your face? Okay, well, it's not DEET. It's not DDT. It's not an insecticide like, you know, the kind that's even like illegal to put on your lawn here in my part of Canada. It's not the same thing. You know, I don't think I even need to go into like the science of how the chemicals that come from a flower is different than the man-made chemicals that are created to control pests on a lawn. You know, and why that's ridiculous. Read his article. He goes through studies, you know, about why essential oils are considered not only safe, but extremely beneficial depending on how, you know, someone formulates with them. But it's the way that this company decided to word that, like saying, well, it's basically insecticide, so like, why would you do that? That's ridiculous. And this company uses, you know, non-organic, probably non-GMO plant oils of like unknown origin, unknown safety. And this is, you know, Josh was saying this too. And then she goes on to fearmonger about essential oils. You know, does anyone else see a little bit of a disconnect there? It's just, it's really irritating. It's irritating to my skin, this kind of fear-mongering. And what I really hate is that it does a lot of damage to us smaller brands, because they are presenting this kind of information as though this is actually fact, when in fact it is not. And, you know, fear-mongering triggers is a great marketing tactic, because it's triggering. It's very, very triggering. And if you've ever taken any kind of marketing course, this is how you're taught to market. You find a pain point, and a pain point can be fear. You know, people are pained trying to figure out how to do the best that they can for their health. And when they're presented with information, you know, this is bad because blah, blah, it's scary. So that can really be upsetting to people. Okay, there's someone coming, so I want to stop talking now. Vlogging in public still makes me really shy. My eyes are extra shifty right now because it's really hard to look into the teeny tiny little viewfinder. I'm using my phone right now, so whew, it is humid today, hot and humid. So yeah, that's my mini rant about that. So what you have to keep in mind is that it's all marketing. Everything is marketing. Everything. Everyone who is an entrepreneur, everyone who owns a company, everyone who's trying to sell a product or a service is marketing to you. That's not always an evil, bad thing. This is something that every entrepreneur struggles with, especially women, actually, is marketing feels gross. So a lot of us are far more subtle about it, to the point where, like, you know, like with Stark, like I hardly market in a way, you know, and I'm really against fear mongering, and I'm really against just like the various shisty ways of marketing, but I do market. I mean, would I have a YouTube account if it weren't for the fact that I have a company and I do need to make sales to survive? Like, not just survive as a company, but like my family depends on my sales. Would I have a YouTube account? I don't think so. However, I'm really happy that I do have it because it turns out that I enjoy doing this. So, you know, it's not just for marketing. That's why I talk about a variety of topics. But yeah, it all comes down to marketing. You know, green beauty, I used to have a big chip on my shoulder with a lot of green beauty brands, especially, you know, like the faux green brands. What do we call that again? Greenwashed. The greenwash brands, because, oh, sorry, I should have like a selfie stick or something. The faux green beauty brands used to really bug me because their marketing tactic was really just about fear mongering against all the toxins and toxic chemicals, and there's still lots of, you know, green beauty brands that do that. And I used to really, really hate that because it made green beauty look stupid. Because, you know, fear-mongering over toxins and chemicals and all that, I mean, everything is a chemical. We all know that. But it's true. Everything is a chemical, and that's just a really ignorant way of marketing, and it makes us all look bad. But now we have, you know, and then conventional beauty used to, you know, shame us about our looks, about getting older, about, you know, having a wrinkle, having a gray hair, not being youthful enough, not being this enough, not being beautiful enough, and all these things. And that's, you know, that's again just looking for a consumer's pain point. Pain point is, I feel insecure, I feel ugly, so I can be sold something. But now the new thing with conventional brands, and you know, Josh was referring to a particular brand, and so am I, and I don't mean to be just picking on this one brand, because I'm sure there's way more that do it. It just happens, I guess it just happens to be a brand that comes up more in our particular circle. And you know, they are really preying on demonizing essential oils, and it's the same thing, you know, it's putting down a certain market to, you know, make that as your own marketing angle. And I get really annoyed when that is like a company's whole, you know, tactic. It's like just putting down one type of company or one type of product to, you know, market yourself. That is lame. We do not need to be so negative in order to promote products. And if that's your whole angle, it's like, okay, well, does your products, do they do any good? You know, as a consumer, I'd be really like thinking twice about that. So, you know, let's talk about like what our particular products, what our particular formula is, like what they provide, what good do they do in the world. So, you know, Stark, for example, like we are, you know, 99% all natural. I do use a few lab-based ingredients that I really believe in, such as ferulic acid and allantoin, but and B5. But you know, I I'm not saying that companies who are all green are bad, or companies that are all chemical based are, or you know what I mean, like lab material based are bad or good or anything. I believe in good ingredients, and I believe that they should be mostly natural, but I think that everything natural can be bolstered by a little bit of science. I really do. I really think that. And you know, my products, like I formulate for urban dwellers so that your skin can have a little reprieve, and it's like having a forest walk for your skin, you know, it's like the skincare version of that. So I'm not saying that, you know, products for country dwellers are bad, is bad. That doesn't even make sense. But do you know what I mean? Anyways, that's my little rant for now. I'm gonna go enjoy my walk. It's me again. I am in my car. I am going to go to the hardware store to buy some pots for my plants. But I have a little bit more to say about the subject. So I'm thinking that maybe companies are really jumping on the demonizing of essential oils recently, because there was this article that got picked up by a lot of the major news sources, BBC, CBC here in Canada, like, you know, like the real news places, whatever it is in the US for you guys now. I don't know what's considered your like reliable news source anymore. But it was about, you know, studies say that tea tree and lavender essential oils can cause gynecomastia in young boys. That means that it can cause, that there's like hormone disruptors in it, and that can cause some endocrine troubles. And then young boys end up growing breasts. So this information actually isn't new. That is one of the warnings that comes with lavender, not tea tree though. That is speculative at best, but that's like an old rumor that's been going around for a long time. And then suddenly it was picked up as news on clearly what was like a no news week. That news piece was picked up because a study was done recently, probably as a reaction to this like old kind of, maybe it's an old wives' tale. I really hate that expression, come to think of it, but, and then it's picked up by news sources. Now I have a video about how science journalists pick up information and why they decide to write about certain things. And you have to remember that we live in a world of clickbait, where news sources want those clicks. We all want those clicks, right? So you die on the internet if nobody clicks on you. And CBC, BBC, all these places, like that's how they make their money. You know, it's advertising on their sites. They need the clicks. So sometimes, and very often actually, these kind of like stupid news things come up because they're interesting to people like us, and we'd like to share this information. And it's scary because a lot of people use essential oils, especially those are the two most popular essential oils. You know, every Pinterest board has like the 70,000 uses of tea tree oil, and they are incredibly overused. But if you actually look at the study, it turns out that the whole thing was inconclusive, that, you know, they didn't do in vitro studies, that everything was lab replicated under conditions that are unclear in the study, so we don't know what kind of labware they're using. And essentially the conclusion was that they couldn't replicate the conditions because obviously they're not actually testing little boys and like watching them over a lifetime of being exposed to like really high amounts of lavender oil. And, you know, in terms of like if it's cancer causing and all these other things that the news source was talking about, they were just saying that they couldn't, just nothing could be replicated, and so it's inconclusive. So how does that actually become news? Do you know what I mean? Because writers are very crafty with the way that they formulate their articles. It's all about that title. Hardly anyone really reads the articles, let alone the studies that are actually, you know, the reference in these articles. And this is how stuff gets blown out of proportion. And, you know, we're all suckers for buying into this. And like, we know when things are clickbait and we get so angry, and yet on the other hand, we're very easily deceived when things look a little bit more legit, you know? So all sources need to be questioned. So I feel like whenever the masses get into this frenzy and, you know, there's like this Schadenfreude, like everyone, you know, 10 years ago was like crazy about essential oils and everyone overused them to like a dangerous degree, and then suddenly, you know, we're having all these reactions. Okay, well, yeah, if you're going to be using like a liter of essential oil on your skin, you better believe you're going to have some reaction, but no one's telling you to do that. You know, and then suddenly then we get the opposite where you know, like everyone hates the essential oils. So what's the truth? Well, the truth is that they're not good or bad. I mean, you know, they're good insofar as they are used correctly, and they are bad whenever they are used incorrectly. And you know, but I mean, if you go out there and start looking at all the studies showing how safe and how beneficial essential oils are, then I don't know, does that make a news story? I guess 10 years ago, but that's not, you know, that's just not where the media is moving towards right now. It's much easier to find devils, you know, find these demons that we can just cut out of our lives, as opposed to looking at like what's really going on in the world, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to be a whole conspiracy theorist. I don't think it's really about that, but anyhow. Okay, so I am off to the hardware store.